Hello folks, I want to do something different today. I will do a live tomorrow, but today I want to do a discussion video around Kingambit because a lot of you guys know I've been struggling a lot versus the Kingambit matchup, and I just kind of want to talk about it a little bit because I don't think enough people are talking about Kingambit. So what is Kingambit? Kingambit, for those who, aren't in the whole showdown scene and everything, Kingambit is a dark steel type evolution of Bisharp. Bisharp was already a very prominent Pokemon. It was OU in Gen 8, it was OU in Gen 5, I believe. It had access to knockoff, which Kingambit no longer has, but its main things that Kingambit does have is Sucker Punch, so some priority, and a stab, Iron Head, a strong steel stab that also has a chance to flinch, and Kowtow Cleave, which never misses. And it also has Swords Dance, which it can boost its own attack too, which is really good, obviously, for a Pokemon that has a ton of attack. Kingambit also has Supreme Overlord, which is a really strong ability that raises your power by 10%, which boosts both your attack and special attack. Not that you ever run special attack, but for those who are crazy enough to. And that boosts it for up to 5 allies. So basically your entire crib dies, and you basically have a Kingambit with a choice band now. Lumberry is one of the more common items that runs with it, so you can't Will-O-Wisp it. You can also run Assault Vest, but then you can't run Swords Dance. You would run Low Kick instead, so you can kill other Kingambits. You can run Heavy Duty Boots. A lot of people run Heavy Duty Boots on it because of its Terra type, which we'll get into more in a minute. A lot of people run Leftovers, so that way they can bring in Kingambit more throughout the entire game. But if you're running the in-game sweeper set, which is the set we're going to be talking the most about today, you want to run Lumberry. So basically, what is my problem with Kingambit? Kingambit is a great Pokemon. It's very strong. The usage stats agree with me. It is the second most used Pokemon, only behind Great Tusk, which is a very strong counter for Kingambit, funny enough. Kingambit has very strong offensive prowess in that it has Sucker Punch for priority in a metagame that doesn't have a ton of priority. It has Kowtow Cleave for just strong, consistent Dark type damage, and Dark type is almost always one of the best offensive types in the game. Look at Weavile's knockoff, for example. We have Iron Head here, and flinching is one of the most deciding factors in a game, which is just makes it all the stronger. And Swords Dance boosting its own attack is really good. It also has Low Kick for itself, basically, so that way you can hit yourself, or if you want to hit King Louie, that's also an option for it. It also has Stealth Rock if you really want to run a utility set, which I wouldn't recommend. Some of these run Terra Blast as well, but again, that's not the in-game sweeper set. This is the in-game sweeper set. Some also run Low Kick. So what is my problem with Kingambit? I myself have found it very hard to counter Kingambit. A lot of my teams just fold to it by the end game because it's just such a strong in-game sweeper, and there is counterplay, but there's not counterplay. And a lot of Kingambit's problems also arise from Terra type. I love Terra. If I would have been good enough to get the Rex for it, I would have voted no. Terra should stay with no restrictions on it. But that's besides the point. Terra is a very strong enabler of Kingambit, and let me show you why. So, Great Tusk, not Obama Snoke. Obama is not very good in this meta. So, Great Tusk, OU offensive. And we're just going to go with the Kingambit Swords Dance setup sweeper, right? So this is the main set. You're running some speed, you're running some HP. Okay, so Great Tusk, this is an OU offensive set. Actually, we're going to go with the defensive set. Great Tusk offensive isn't seen that much anymore. This is the main Great Tusk set that you see these days. Earthquake, Knockoff, Rapid, and Stealth Rock. Great Tusk is one of the best counters to Kingambulus. It just is. It is. It's an undeniable fact that it is. We're going to put Lumberry on this too. Not that it matters, but okay. We're going to assume that 5 allies have fainted because you're sweeping in the in-game, right? That's how it goes. So this is your Kingambit set. You're not really doing that much at Great Tusk, but here's the thing. Great Tusk is at the in-game. Are you really going to assume this Great Tusk is at 100% HP? Great Tusk is one of the greatest Pokemon in OU right now. I mean, the stats say it because it is a great physically defensive check. It checks Dragonite, it checks Corviknight, and it can knock off Corviknight, which is the main reason why it checks it. It doesn't check Goldango, but, it does sit on it. It checks Kingambit, which is the main reason why it's at 56% in my opinion. Also because Landorus isn't in the meta yet, which I think Landorus will help in keeping Kingambit a little bit more in check, maybe. But yeah, it just checks a lot of Pokemon here. It checks Toxapex, it checks. It doesn't really. King Louis and it don't really check each other, other than the fact that you can rapid spin King Louis's hazards away. It sort of checks Garganacci to a degree, kind of checks Amoonguss to a degree, kind of checks Glimmer to a degree. It's just like a soft check to a ton of Pokemon in the meta right now, is the main thing with that Great Tusk offers. So you're not going to assume that this thing is at 100% HP, right? That's just unreasonable, I think. I think you're assuming that this thing gets into this end game with 75% HP. Okay, great, good for you. You have 75% HP going into this end game. Your opponent has Kingambit in. You were just sweeping with who do we want to say the sweeper is? Let's look at the sweepers right now. Okay, let's say you're sweeping with, I don't know. Look, the sweeper doesn't matter. It doesn't. It really doesn't. Look, I mean, say you're on with a defensive Pokemon. Say you got your Skeleturge and you just hit someone up with Torch Song, right? That's a great example. This happens a lot in games, I think. So you're gonna go, oh, you bulky attacker. This thing's running 66 speed. You're running just enough speed to outspeed 0 speed Skeleturge. Because why the hell would you run speed on your Skeleturge? That'd be so stupid. So you're basically pressuring it to OHKO it with Kowtow Cleave, right? Now, you're not going to, let's just assume that you're not going to go for the Swords Dance, because that would be a stupid and risky play, and we're going to assume that you're not that dumb and that you're not going to throw the game with one Sucker Punch. You're going to go for the Kowtow Cleave, right? Your Kowtow Cleave is doing 15 to 18%. Or, guess what? Skeleturge has Terra, you get to go for the Iron Head. Woo! Iron Head, yay! And you get to do a chunky 30 to 35%. So, guess what? Let's assume that Great Tusk somehow got into this endgame with 70% HP. Now, you guys might be thinking, oh, Mr. 502, you're assuming a lot in this endgame. Yes, I am assuming a lot in this game. Because I can assume whatever I want, and Kingambit's going to come out on top, and that's the point I'm trying to make here. Earthquake, doing not much. Knockoff doing not much. You're always going to click Earthquake in front of this thing, right? So, guess what? You were smart enough to save your Terra for the endgame, because if you're a Kingambit player, you should always be saving your Terra type for the endgame. Guess what? You Terra Flying. Wow. You are literally doing negative damage to this Kingambit now. 20% with knockoff, who cares? 10 to 12% with Rapid Spin, again, who cares? You can't even touch this thing with Earthquake. Now, you could be running Ice Spinner, but I mean, that's pretty rare. I run Ice Spinner with mine because I'm good at the game and because I struggle with the Kingambit matchup. So that's an option, right? But then, guess what? You can go for either another Iron Head here and chunk Great Tusk again. And this also assumes, by the way, that you're running max defensive Great Tusk. I don't think this is a very common step, personally. I think you're usually running some speed investment. But anyway, assuming you're not, assuming you're running max defense, or you can go for that juicy +2, and then you can go into Iron Head. And now, guess what? You're down to 10%, and your opponent is down to 80% because you got the knockoff off. Congratulations. Let's even say that's a higher roll than 75%. Okay, now you Sucker Punch. Great Tusk is dead. Guess what? Your entire team is chunked, and I mean, it's the end game, right? Your entire team is chunked. That's pretty common, right? And that's fine. That's usually fine. But guess what? You're a +2 attack. You have a Sucker Punch priority to hit everything. Anything that isn't priority, you have Iron Head and Kowtow Cleave to chunk. And guess what? You have 75% HP still. Versus a chunk team, you have a Lumberry in the back, so they can't even use the Will-O-Wisp game. They can't even use Will-O-Wisps to end your game. They just can't. They have no. There are so few answers to Sweeper Kingambit. Let me show you how many answers there are. Great Tusk. We already just assumed. We saw that Great Tusk. Great Tusk is a great answer, but this assumes that your Kingambit is chunked, right? And that your Great Tusk has Ice Spinner. And that your opponent was dumb enough to use their Terra at the end game. Now, a lot of people do use their Terra in mid game, but Kingambit players are usually smart enough to wait to use their Terra. Now, you might think, oh, congratulations. You were smart enough to wait to use your Terra. You should be rewarded for that. Yes, but also, it's ridiculous that it gets this in-game sweep off so consistently and there's so few counters. Baxcalibur, not a counter. Unless you Terra. Okay, now Baxcalibur is a counter, but guess what? How much is Sucker Punch doing at +2? How much is Sucker Punch doing at +2? Ice Shard's doing 33 to 39. Okay, good for you. Now Kingambit's down to 40% HP. Kingambit still has 40% HP, and Sucker Punch kills. So if you go for the Glaive Rush, you're dead. If you go for the Ice Shard, you're dead. Kowtow Cleave, you're gone. You're done. You're done. Icicle Spear. Okay, you're great. Your Baxcalibur, which has 75%. Let's say this is a low roll. You're at 12%. Guess what? You're still sweeping. Guess what? You're at 1%. Guess what? You still have the chance to sweep it with Sucker Punch, right? And now you can say, oh, your opponent could win every single Sucker Punch mind game. But that's, like, really hard to do, right? Like, that is very hard to do. So, what is my point with making all this video? What is my point with making this 15-minute video bitching about these weird-ass calcs with Kingambit? my point is, I don't think people are talking enough about Kingambit. I think that it's not that it's a sleeper pick right now. It's clearly not. It's at 41.46%. People clearly know that this thing is very, very strong. But my problem is, people aren't seeing this thing as maybe it's too overpowered. Now, maybe you could say, Mr. 502, you're a dumbass, you need to get good at the game, get good scrub, right? But you could also say that about me getting swept by Volcarona in every other video, or getting swept by Dragonite in every other video. But the difference is, these two Pokemon have been talked about as, hey, these things might be too strong for the meta. At least ask the player base, hey, is this Pokemon too strong for the meta right now? I think Kingambit is a very, 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 very potent threat. It has priority. It's got bulk. It's got a great Terra option. This thing is very, very hard to take down in the end game after your entire team dies. And your entire team dying is not a great win con. I don't think, in the terms of that, it's not very skillful, right? And you know what? An unskillful mechanic wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. But on a Pokemon as strong as Kingambit, it really is just an unskilled mechanic that is just very, very strong. It's like Revival Blessing, but it's on, like, everyone was worried about Revival Blessing, but they put it on two Pokemon that just are not that big of threats. I mean, Palmots and UU, I don't even know where Rapska is. It's like not even on the radar. Basically, that's a pretty somewhat skillless move, right? But they balance it, and they put it on not very good Pokemon, which I think makes them usable. They put, however, this very strong Supreme Overlord ability on Kingambit, who is a very, very, very strong Pokemon. I just think that Kingambit needs to be talked about more in terms of, is it too strong for the meta? And I don't think people are talking about that enough. We've talked about it with Dragonite. I've seen people talk about it with Volcarona. A lot of people talking about it with Roaring Moon. A lot of people talking about Gholdengo. A lot of people talking about it with Garganacci. Garganacci's kind of in the clear now. No one really thinks that thing's too strong anymore. But I think they need to talk about it more with Kingambit. And I'm gonna tell you guys. I've ran the calcs, a few more of these calcs basically. Corviknight's really not an answer because your Terra Flying Body Press isn't doing much, right? Ting Lu, basically, here's your counter list. I'll just give you the counter list, right? I'm getting a little bit like not focus my thoughts, and I apologize for that. Thank you guys for sticking with me. But basically, here's your list of checks to it. Basically, Pokemon that can defensively check Kingambit. You have Great Tusk. You have, to a degree, Great Tusk. You have King Louie, and that's even to a degree because King Louie is usually running Whirlwind, 2 hazards, Spikes and Stealth Rock, and Earthquake. So if you Terra Flying Kingambit, yeah, sure, King Louie it's not taking much from Kingambit, right? But it's not doing that much either, and it's not really an effective check, at least to Terra Flying Kingambit. Gholdengo is not Gholdengo. Wow, holy cow. Garganacci is a very, very, very strong counter to this thing. Iron Head is doing about 45% to a max defensive, so you can outstall it with Protect, Recover, and Stalk here, which Terra Flying or not, it's very strong. But also, if you're protecting, then you got to worry about Kingambit clicking Sword Stance on you. So, and this assumes that Garganacci enters the endgame with 100% HP, which is also very rare. Dondozo is your hardest counter. Dondozo it doesn't care about Sword Stance, and it deals damage back really well. Body Press does a lot. If it's Terra, Liquidation is still doing a lot. It can curse up on Kingambit. It can rest on Kingambit. Dondozo is your ultimate Kingambit counter. If you are that worried about Kingambit, run Donbozo on your team. It is your ultimate Kingambit counter. You can even run Rocky Helmet on it if you want to do that much more passive damage to it. Basically, that's about it. That's about your list of counters. That is literally your list of counters to Kingambit. Iron Shreds is a counter as well, but it doesn't have the defensive and typing prowess that Great Tusk has, unfortunately. Torkoal is also a good defensive counter, but the thing about Torkoal is the teams that run Torkoal on Sun teams, they usually run Heat Rock. So if you have Stealth Rocks up, it's getting chunked, which in a lot of games you do. Or even if you don't have Stealth Rocks up, the turtle is probably taken quite a beating from the game just because it's had to come in and set up the sun. And if you're not, guess what? If Torkoal isn't getting beat up, then you're hard switching it into Pokemon that are getting, into the Sun abusers that are getting beat up, and then they're not even that good in the end game. And they don't, you don't pose that much of a threat to Kingambit after all, right? So that's the thing. That's my problem, is that there are very few limited checks to Kingambit, and I just don't think it's getting talked about enough. I think that this thing needs to at least be included on the surveys that say, hey, is this Pokemon strong enough? I personally would like a suspect test for it. I think if I'm using my personal bias here, I think a suspect test is in order for Kingambit personally. And I would like to see that. I think they've given it enough time to breathe. And maybe they're just not doing it because home is inevitable within the next month or two. But I think that if a Pokemon right now is deserving of being suspect tested, it is Kingambit 300%. And I hope that is the case, but we'll see. Also, I did initially say this on my Twitter. Go follow my Twitter, by the way, please, and thank you. I initially said starting to think Kingambit needs suspect tested, and I think the usage stats kind of prove it. And it's not like Great Tuskathy where it's like its usage is good because it's just a blanket answer. Kingambit is just like a blanket offensive answer, and I think it's almost too much. Like Iron Valiant has a lot of good checks and counters. Toxapex AV being the main one we've been seeing a lot lately. Corviknight's a good answer. Even Thunderbolt sets, you can Brave Bird Iron Valiant. Iron Valiant has 0 Spit F. If you have some with a Focus Sash, you're fine. Extreme Speed Dragonite's a great counter to Iron Valiant. Goldango is a great answer to Iron Valiant. Iron Valiant has counterplay. Iron Valiant's very strong offensively, but it has a lot of answers to it, unlike Kingambit, who I don't think has. I think Kingambit's a Pokemon that you have to stack the deck with. So anyway, I know I keep getting sidetracked on these tangents, but that's my thoughts on it. Let me know what you guys think in the comments, and let me know what you think on Twitter too, because I'll be moving this discussion to Twitter more too, because I would like to talk about this more. And yeah, I think the main thing that out of this is that Kingambit should at least get suspect tested. I don't know if it's too strong or not. I think it needs to get suspect tested. I think Home needs to come out so we can see it interact with Home. I think Terra probably needs to be suspect tested again, because I think that's a main enabler of Kingambit. I think Kingambit's one of the Pokemon that benefits from Terra typing the most, like more than any other Pokemon. Kingambit benefits from Terra typing. So yeah. Let me know what y'all think in the comments down here on YouTube and on Twitter. Give my Twitter a follow. And thank you all very much for watching this discussion video. I really appreciate it. And thank you all for all the views and subs and stuff lately. It's been really cool seeing my channel grow. And I don't think I ever say thank you enough for how much I appreciate all the follows and everything. So yeah, I just want to say thank you all very much. And I'm very grateful for you guys. And yeah. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you all in the next episode. We'll be doing a Kingambit live, and we're also going to be bringing back the frog. Where is the frog? Oh, here we go. Here's the frog. We're going to be using the Smack Greninja in UU because Rain is actually super good there, and I will have a lot of fun with it. We'll see. UU, because the UU usage just changed and all. So yeah, thank you all for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Have a great rest of your day, and stay positive. Or I don't know what I'm trying to say. Bye.